Today we're going to talk about the plot again. This time we're going to go from plot into a summary and how using our story mountain can help us build a nice summary. Remember, this is the focus of the week. As we go through chapters 13 through 16, we're thinking about plot. The plot is the pattern of events in a story. And typically stories start by introducing the characters and the setting, then having a series of events that provide suspense and conflict, introduce problems. The climax is when you get the highest problem, the highest point of the story, and that suspense you might feel of what's going to happen next. And then stories usually have some sort of solution to the problems and a resolution and conclusion. Almost every story you read follows a story mountain or a plot diagram like this. You might remember from other summaries we've written that a summary is telling the important events or ideas in a story. So once you think about the events lined up in their plot diagram, that can help you build a summary. Remember, the summary is also written in your own words. In third grade, you may have thought about summary as the events at the beginning, middle, and end of the story. Notice how the beginning, middle, and end of the story are also on our story mountain here. We'll be talking about how to write a summary using this plot mountain, also connecting back to how you could write the beginning, middle, and end of a story. Or another method where you can think about the somebody, the people in the story, what they wanted in the story, but what the big problem was, so in the end, what they did then. This is a useful diagram that takes a little bit of time to think through, so we'll look at it again a little bit later. Let's start by thinking about how your summaries last week were so good. They included a lot of details and the main idea. Those were all for nonfiction summary writing. You read factual articles and you came up with the main idea, details, and a concluding sentence. Now that we're focusing on fiction writing, things that are made up, the summary is a little bit different. You're still going to pull out the most important events and ideas, and you're still going to write it in your own words. But you won't need to have 3 details specifically. For example, we are going to be looking at the story of Little Red Riding Hood and thinking about that as a fiction story and how to summarize it. Our main goal is to include all of the story elements. That's what we've been learning about through City of Ember, is the setting, the characters, and then this plot helps us understand the problems and then the solutions along the way. So if we think about the story of Little Red Riding Hood, we have the characters. Little Red Riding Hood goes to visit her grandmother. That would be at the introduction of our story if you think about the plot diagram. But she meets a sneaky wolf in the woods. That is one of the problems. It might even be close to the climax of the story. He tricks Little Red Riding Hood into thinking he is her grandmother so that he can eat her. Oh, now we're definitely at the climax. He wants to eat her. Yikes. Let's see how the problem might get resolved. In the end, a woodcutter saves Little Red Riding Hood and her grandmother from the wolf. Notice how the story elements are in this little summary. The characters, the setting, the problem, and the solution. We can look at this on the plot diagram to make it more clear. At the beginning of the story, Little Red Riding Hood goes to visit her grandmother. Exposition is another name for that beginning, that introduction. But she meets a sneaky wolf in the woods. Rising action, it's getting tense. He tricks Little Red Riding Hood into thinking he is her grandmother so he can eat her. Yikes, we're at the climax. We don't know what's going to happen and it's suspenseful. The falling action and resolution In the end, a woodcutter saves Little Red and her grandmother from the wolf. Notice how the summary follows the same path as our plot diagram. That's why thinking about the plot diagram can be helpful when you're writing a summary. Of course, there are other smaller events that happen around here too. In the introduction, they might have talked about the singing birds in the wood. In the rising action, they might have talked about the shadows in the forest. But it's okay to just use the biggest, most important pieces when you write your final summary. Let's try this with a series of pictures. Here we have some pictures. Take a minute to look at them and see if you can piece together a story. We're going to try and put these together into our plot diagram. Here I see a family loading up their car with a lot of supplies for what looks like the beach based on what they're wearing and holding. Here I see the family setting up on the beach and people eating. I also see people building a sandcastle, taking a long time it looks like to build that sandcastle. There's 2 pictures of sandcastle building. And I can tell that it started smaller and then it got taller and taller. Here, at the climax, I think, of the story, look what happened to the sandcastle. The waves came in and they look a little bit upset because it destroyed their sandcastle. And then this story wraps up pretty quickly. The falling action and resolution is combined into, oh look, they went to go play. So if I think about this plot diagram and try and turn it now into a summary, I need to add words and include the most important pieces of the story. So let's turn these pictures into some words. A family prepared for a day at the beach. They packed up and drove off. At the beach, they had a picnic. The kids worked hard to build a sandcastle. The waves came and washed their sandcastle away. I might even put an exclamation point. Oh my gracious. When the kids noticed their destroyed sandcastle, they seemed disappointed. Instead of being upset, they switched to playing ball. I took the pictures and I turned them into the sentences that I might use for my summary. Notice, in a final summary, I could leave off some things, like they packed up and drove off. I might not need that. I could say they got ready to go to the beach, and then at the beach, they had a picnic and built a sandcastle. You won't have every detail in your final summary, but we're building up the steps of putting events in order, putting them on the plot diagram, and then writing that into a summary. Remember, we said that this diagram was a little complex, but also very useful. It is that same plot diagram: introduction, rising action, climax, falling action, and resolution, coupled with what you might have learned in 3rd grade to tell what happens at the beginning of the story, what happens at the middle, and what happens at the end. If we were writing our beach story as a beginning, middle, end summary, it might look something like this. Beginning: a family prepared to go to the beach. They packed up and drove off. Middle: at the beach, they had a picnic and built a sandcastle. The waves came and destroyed the castle. End: when the kids noticed their destroyed sandcastle, they seemed disappointed, but decided to play beach ball instead. This template can be used today in your work. If you want to write a beginning, middle, end summary, and the topic is going to be on part of City of Ember, you can. Or you can use this template: someone wanted, but, so, then. This is the set of red words that we read on our story plot here. You start by saying who and what they wanted, what happened, but, at that climax, so, and how it resolved. For example, in our beach story, we might say someone, that is, a family, went to the beach. wanted. What did they want? The kids wanted to build a sandcastle. But, oh my goodness, but waves came and destroyed the castle. So, they were disappointed. Then they decided to play ball instead. Notice how this template, someone who wanted, what did they want? But what was the problem? So they solved the problem. Then they had a resolution. Helps me write a template for my story. These are like the notes for my summary. And from these notes, I would then go back and edit to make sure that I have complete sentences with periods, capital letters, and that it flows together nicely. This someone wanted but so then gives you an outline to help write your work. I still need to go back and make sure, like this, but waves came and destroyed the castle, is built into a better sentence. That's not complete yet. You want to make sure if you use beginning, middle, end, or someone wanted but so then, you tell the highlights of the story. Remember, a summary tells the important events or ideas in your own words. And you do that using your great fourth grade writing. Capital letters, full sentences, periods, and your words, not the author's words. What will you be writing a summary about today? Well, you are reading chapter 15 in City of Ember. And you're just going to focus on chapter 15 for your summary. Only chapter 15 will be included on your plot diagram. You can have this plot diagram in your head, or you can use it to write your final summary. Here's what I mean. I'm going to supply 3 different templates for you. You can use any of the 3 to write your story. To write your summary. You could use the beginning, middle, end template, the someone wanted but so then template, or the plot diagram template. A template just means the piece of paper you're going to write on. Whichever one you use, your goal is to write a summary of chapter 15. These different templates or papers you can use helps you think through that summary. All right, chapter 15 is your 1 chapter for the day, and writing your summary is your 1 assignment for the day. For English, of course. I hope you also enjoyed today's math and social studies. Have a good one.